The Islanders' future hinges on this, and right now, the word future means everything for the New York Islanders, as while they are attempting to be competitive this season, and I've said in previous videos where some of you have disagreed in the comments and others have strongly agreed, this Islanders team is a team that can be competitive next season if things go right. However, I don't think that's the focus. The focus is clearly the future, and this future of the Islanders really hinges on how many of their top 10 prospects hit. And on this episode, we are going to be talking about the top 10 prospects in the Islanders system. We have a list from Eyes on Isles giving their top 10 prospects for the Islanders, and I'm going to give my differing opinions on that list and where I think some of these prospects should be. And this is really exciting because for the first time looking at an Islanders top 10, all of the names on the list are pretty relevant. These are all players who can get good value if you use them as a trade piece. I'm not saying you're going to trade any prospects right now. The goal is, if anything, to add more prospects. My point is, these are all players who have value. If they were a second-round pick, they are still worth at least the second-round pick that they were drafted with, which is really exciting for Islanders fans who want this team to get younger and have a bright future, which I do think they have, and we're going to talk about the key parts of that future on this episode. Really quickly, before we get into that, if you are somebody who is interested in breaking into sports media, if you have a passion for sports, which I know you do considering you are watching Islanders content in August, consider joining our Digest media team. We are currently looking for new members, both writers and content creators, for all four major sports, being hockey, basketball, football, the other major sport, another one, baseball. Sorry about that. If you're interested in making content or writing for Digest Media, be sure to check out this link. It is in the description below, and join our Digest Media team. Now let's talk about this Islanders prospect pool, which I am so excited about. We're starting at the top. In hindsight, perhaps we could have gone from 10 down. Although I think 10, 9, 8, that's where stuff gets really interesting for the Islanders. There's no surprise that Mathew Schaefer is the #1 prospect for the Islanders. And in terms on whether or not Mathew Schaefer is going to hit, I think it's pretty much a guarantee. I hate to say that. I don't mean to jinx anything, but when you have a first overall player and a player who can skate the way Mathew Schaefer skates, the future is in good hands, and I think this is a future captain for the Islanders. And there's really no debate that he is the top prospect in this franchise. There's an argument to be made, and while I do think it is Ivan Demidov, that he is the top prospect in the entire NHL. Whether or not he makes the team this season or next season, don't think it really matters. When Mathew Schaefer makes the Islanders, he's going to have a major impact on the ice. However, at #2, I think right away, this is where things get really interesting. Eyes on Isles has Calum Ritchie as the Islanders' second best prospect, and I don't think this is wrong. And a big thing that's interesting when it comes to prospects is there are a lot of different things to grade. And one thing about Calum Ritchie is I think his floor is a lot higher, and also he is a lot closer to being NHL ready. However, I don't think he is the second best Islanders prospect. I've been pretty vocal on the channel saying I believe the second best prospect in this system is Victor Eklund. And note, I think it is very close between Eklund, Ritchie, and Yzerman. You could really make an argument for any of those combinations, but for me, I think that Victor Eklund is the second best prospect in this Islanders system. He does have a longer time to develop just because he was just drafted, but again, and we talked about this time and time again after the draft, this is a player who should have never slipped to the Islanders at 16. I think he has a very high ceiling. Honestly, I believe he is a better player than his brother, and if that is the case, and he is a better player than William Eklund on the San Jose Sharks, Islander fans have a lot to be excited about. And he just has a similar floor to Calum Ritchie. It doesn't take him longer to get there, and he's not a center, but just what he provides, there's an all-roundedness to his game that other prospects don't quite have. And because of that, I would personally go with Victor Eklund at #2, Calum Ritchie at #3, and Cole Yzerman at #4. I can also see you making an argument for Cole Yzerman at number 2 even, because he has more of that offense potential. But for me, because there is more of a question mark when it comes to his defense, not really knocking him at all. Again, this Islanders prospect pool is no longer what it used to be. It is absolutely stacked. Cole Eiserman slipping down this list has nothing to do with his quality as a prospect. He would be, at this point, I would say, out of all the teams in the NHL, on a good 15 of them, he would be their number 1 prospect. So the fact that we're arguing on whether he's 2, 3, or 4 in our system is really encouraging, because that means we have 4 prospects that are better than most teams' best prospects. Keep that in mind. Super encouraging for the future of the Islanders. But I would go Victor Eklund 2, Calum Ritchie 3, and then Cole Eiserman 4. So kind of in switching around what Eyes and Isles have. I understand their argument, and to be fair, the first 2 are a lot closer to being NHL ready. I just see so much more potential when it comes to Victor Eklund. It's not me being low on Calum Ritchie. I have a feeling that Calum Ritchie can make this Islanders team right out of training camp. Very high on him, was ecstatic to get him from the Brock Nelson trade. I just think Victor Eklund is that much better of a player. At 5, though, I think it's pretty consensus that the 5th best prospect in the Islanders system is Kashawn Aitchison. He's a first-round pick, has a ton of value. He's another prospect that a lot of teams, probably not 15, but a lot of teams, he would be their best prospect. So having him at number 5 for the Islanders, it is pretty incredible. However, I do think there is a tier down between Schaefer, then there's a tier, and then where you have Calum Ritchie, Eklund, Eiserman, then there's another tier down, and then you have Aitchison. And for the Islanders pool, I think Aitchison is in a tier of his own. And this is where the list gets really interesting, in my opinion, because typically in the NHL, prospects 6 through 10 are really not that interesting. Not the case with the Islanders. They have a lot of exciting prospects, and really I think a lot of volatility where you can rank these players. Danny Nelson is ranked number 6 here. I'm going to have a bit of a hot take, and I actually think that the 6th best prospect in the Islanders system is Isaiah George. This is a player who I think is really getting slept on a little bit, especially considering what he's already done in the NHL. And the fact that he put up some offense in the AHL is really encouraging me when it comes to Isaiah George, because this is a defenseman who was drafted to be a defensive defenseman. There really wasn't that much talk about offense in his game. So the fact that he's now showing offense in the AHL that he really did not show in juniors, and also showing flashes of being able to move the puck with the Islanders, I am very high on Isaiah George. I think this is a potential top 4 caliber defenseman. As a result, I think that is why he's above Danny Nelson. He's just done it at a higher level. And this is not me hating Danny Nelson. I think Danny Nelson is a good 7 prospect, but I really think Isaiah George is getting slept on with a lot of these lists. So I would go Isaiah George 6, and then Danny Nelson at 7. And then Daniil Prokhorov being at 7 is really interesting for me in this list as well. One thing about Prokhorov, I was super impressed with his showing in the Islanders rookie camp, where we all went to see the Islanders prospects play in that 4-on-4 tournament. Was amazed with Prokhorov, and I think he was a steal going in the 2nd round for the Islanders after watching him. However, I don't think he's quite surpassed some of the more established players in this Islanders system. I think having him at 7 is a bit too high. Honestly, I would probably put him in the 9-10 range. In front of him, one player I think is definitely has to be ahead is, first, well, yeah, I said before, Isaiah George, but I think Quinn Finley is a player who is definitely getting underrated in this conversation. Had a really strong year in college, and I just think at this point, while I think Prokhorov can surpass Finley as a player eventually, right now I think Finley is the better prospect. So I would put him at my 8th spot, and then as a result, I would have Prokhorov at my 9th spot. And then 10, I have Marcus Gidoff. Great goaltending prospect. In fact, I think every single prospect in this list for Eyes and Isles, yeah, every single one is in my top 10. I just disagree with the order. For me, Gidoff is the 10th best prospect in the Islanders system, and it's actually really close between him and Dmitry Gamzin. A lot of scouts really like Gidoff's game. Personally, I actually am really excited about Gamzin's game playing in the KHL. Sure, you have some questions about whether or not he is going to come over, but for a team that already has a starting goaltender, the Islanders also have some pretty exciting goaltending prospects. And what I like about what the Islanders do when it comes to drafting goaltenders is they don't pick them too high. Now, one player that I considered putting on my list, but I decided since it wasn't put on the Eyes and Isles list, I wouldn't put them in, is Maxim Shabanov. Whether or not you want to consider Shabanov a prospect, considers on what your definition of a prospect is. He has not played a single game in the NHL, so he is eligible to win the Calder Trophy next season, and I think he is actually a sleeper to be in the conversation for that award. So as a result, I would actually have him maybe 6 on the list if I was including him right behind Kashan Aitchison, just because he is a first-round pick, and I think he has a ton of potential as a defenseman. But he's a player who, while not a prospect, because he's 24, so most lists wouldn't include him, although goaltending prospects seems to be under 25, he's a player who I think is a sleeper in terms of a young player who's going to provide value right away. And we'll see what happens with Shabanov. Other players who are not quite on this list that I really considered, I had a question. I had a point where I was really wondering if I wanted to put Camille Bendark on this list, but I just could not put him over Marcus Gidoff. I think Gidoff is just a goaltender who shows a lot of potential stability for the future. I really like Bendark's game. I think I am in the minority on that. I think a lot of people don't really consider him that valuable, especially after last season where his game really didn't take a step up offensively. But watching him, I think all the tools are there for Bendark, so he's a player who I'm really interested in for the future. And while other people have given up on him and say he's not great value for a second-round pick, I'm still holding out hopes that this is going to work well. And yeah, those are the prospects that I think are really worth talking about for the New York Islanders. You also have your Alex Jeffries, your Matthew Maggios. In previous years, those guys would probably be featured in the top 10 of this list. I really don't think there's even a conversation for those guys. And that's a good thing for the Islanders because you want as many potential young players as possible. Because again, not every player on this list is going to pan out. I would be genuinely stunned if Matthew Schaefer, Calum Ritchie, Yzerman, Victor Eklund, and even Kashan Aitchison didn't become at least solid NHL players. But you never know. That's why they're prospects, and that's why it's good to have a pool as deep as the Islanders prospect pool is. Let me know in the comments what your top 10 prospects for the New York Islanders are. Where do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm too bullish on certain players? Do you think I'm sleeping on other guys? Did I leave somebody completely off my list? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm your host, Patrick Nilan. Catch you on the next episode of Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders.